Okay, so let's talk about this VR6 Turbo Chevy S10. My name is Kenny, and I built this truck about, I guess, 2.5, 3 years ago now is when it all started. So I get asked a lot of questions about it, why it was built, why I did it the way I did it, why did I put a VR6 in an S10 when there's LS engines that produce 3 times the amount of power with probably the same amount of cash put into the truck. So, the first things we're going to talk about why we built it, why you choose what you choose to build, how you kind of go about doing it, establishing, a budget for it, basically all the reasons and why you would start to build a project like this, and kind of the tribulations that you go through as you're building a vehicle, and some of the mental, I guess, and emotional game that you have to fight to keep continuing on with the project and actually being able to finish it in some sort of timely fashion, because there's plenty of people that do projects and they end up taking them 10 years. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's time, sometimes it's just you lose interest, and sometimes there's really big challenges that you just have to figure out and how to overcome. And so I'd like to talk about that in a lot of these videos. So over the course of, I guess, the next couple weeks, months, however long this takes me to do, I want to do a couple different series to kind of talk about each thing individually, show some still photos of the truck, certain attributes of it, like the cooling system, transmission adapter, flywheel, how I did the drive shaft, the drivetrain, so stuff related to the turbocharging system, the intercooler piping, the intercooler itself, the gauge cluster, the wiring, the transmission tunnel. So this truck is a vaster child of pretty much everything. Chevy, Ford, Volkswagen, Nissan, just about anything and everything has been put into this thing. So I get asked a lot of questions about it, so I figured this is probably one of the best ways to talk about it, considering there's not a lot of people that enjoy reading anymore. Everybody likes to watch videos and kind of get the information point blank, and that seems to be one of the best ways to do it. So that being said, we'll get into how you start off with a project like this. So, for me, the beginning is really deciding what you want to do with the vehicle. Do you want to race it? Do you want to track it? Do you want to just have a street vehicle? Do you want to have a grocery getter? All those kind of things have to go through your mind, and you kind of have to assess the purpose of the vehicle. Each vehicle's purpose is going to be built slightly different, and depending on what you want to do with it, it's going to be set up differently. So for me, this kind of started off as a road course truck because I have a lot of good friends that do a lot of road course racing, and you don't see many pickup trucks. So I figured, what the hell, I'll try and do something a lot different. To start with the pickup, I always loved S10s and these little mini trucks. I've had a Blazer when I was in high school. My brother has a Typhoon. So it's just kind of naturally, I like the square body trucks, and they're small enough, light enough, and there's a million parts you can get between the lowering, the suspension, geometry, tires, wheels, brakes, you name it. They pretty much make anything that possible for these small frame trucks, as well as the big frame trucks. Now there's a lot of aftermarket parts for those too. So anyway, the whole thing started with I loved S10s. I've had them since I've been younger, so that was kind of like the frame of the truck. I wanted to build an S10. At one point, I definitely wanted to do an LS swap, and I thought that's where I would go with this truck. But I've always had Volkswagens all my life, and VR6s in particular, and this is the third VR6 Turbo that I've built personally for myself. I've done a lot of other different builds with other people. Yeah, so I love the VR6 engine. I think it's a stout motor for moderate horsepower on pretty small budget. So I decided, well, I love VR6s, I love Volkswagens, and I love mini trucks and S10s. So what the hell? Let's put them both together and see what we can do. So that's really what kicked off the truck to build this particular vehicle. And then of course, as you get into it, things change, and you decide, you make certain decisions, and instead of it being a track vehicle anymore, it kind of just became a street truck that I drive. I can drive it daily if I want to. It drives perfectly fine. It's like a stock S10 for the most part, without any boost, and then once you get into the boost, then it's a whole nother animal. So, it all started with being a road race truck, and then as I got into it, looked into steering geometry, suspension geometry, and where I'd have to go to get it to where it needed to be to be a road course truck, as well as, getting the engine in there, how it's fitted, the transmission, the drive line. It just kind of worked out that, when I was just going to make this a street truck, and I'll save another car for road course racing. So, that's where I kind of made the decision to just keep it street and make it a cool truck that I can drive around, take to work, take to car shows, take to track days if I want to, and basically have a conversation piece and say something that I did this and nobody else has actually done it. So that's another reason that I built this truck like this, is nobody has built a VR6 S10. I did some online searching. I did online searching. I actually had an idea to build a LS rear-wheel drive Golf before I did this, but then I ended up just doing this instead. So in the meantime, searching to see if anybody had actually done this type of project before with the S10. I saw on some forums that people were talking about it, and they mentioned about, they wanted to do it, and this, that, and the other thing. It was probably like a 12-year-old post or something like that. But nobody that I had saw had ever done it. So that was another driver to build this particular truck, is that, this was something that I can do with some good friends of mine at MMI Concepts, he had, my friend John had some experience with the rear-wheel drive VR6 Corrado that he built. So, some of that framework we already had and understood. But ultimately it was something that nobody's done before. So in the shop at MMI, we kind of coined it the game changer, just because for the shop it's one of the second things that was done rear-wheel drive with the VR6, but this was more of a street vehicle, so it had to perform like a street vehicle. There was no rip it down the quarter mile and shut it off and don't worry about it if it overheats or any of that stuff. This thing has to stand up in traffic. You can't have a ton of oil leaks. You want it to drive nice, you want it to shift nice, you don't want the clutch to be like pushing on a cinder block. So there was a lot of engineering, design, and kind of fabrication that had to go along with this, which is why I really enjoyed building it. So anyway, that's kind of how you decide what you want to do with the vehicle, and that's how I decided to do what I did with the vehicle. So once I decided I was gonna build this S10. It was time to look for a body, right? So I had to find. I didn't want a banged up S10. I wanted something fairly straight when I bought it, so that way I minimized the amount of body work, because I've done a lot of body work on cars before. And while it's fun and I love to paint, it's one of those things that you can really get wrapped up in and spend hundreds of hours getting the body straight, getting the lines right, and for the timeline of the project, I really didn't want to get balled into doing a lot of body work. So I bought a fairly straight chassis. It was a roller. It came not with these wheels. It didn't come satin black. That was something that I still did body work, but not really deep into the body work. But yeah, it was a roller, had little 15-inch wheels on it. The guy I bought it from was near Philadelphia. He apparently had some sort of big block in it. I don't really know, I don't really care. Okay, let's try this again. So I got the truck outside of Philadelphia. Like I said, the guy had a big block in it. The body and everything was fairly straight. There wasn't as much body work as I wanted. I didn't have to do as much body work as other cars I've done, but I was fortunate that this truck had ladder bar set up in the rear using a Ford 88, and it already had 33 spline Mosier axles, a spool, so it was already set up with coils. So no more leaf spring suspension in the rear, eliminate the wheel hop. So the rear end was already set up. So it was a good solid base. At which point, once I purchased the truck, I took it right to MMI Concepts, and that's where I started to tear everything down to get it ready for the dummy block and the training and the adapter to start, fabricating motor mounts. So that being said, that's really the main reasons why I built the truck, and in the later videos I'll get to talking about each of the individual parts and what I did to build them, and then I'll probably have some links to some of the parts that I bought in case anybody wants to try and replicate it. And if there's any other questions or concerns or whatever, I'm open to answering anything that anybody may have. So that being said, the next video I'll probably talk about, as an engineer, creating a budget. So I have a bunch of different spreadsheets that I use to keep track of what parts I've bought, how much I paid, kind of overall budget for the truck. So that'll be the next phase. I guess I probably should have talked about that first, because that's kind of the first thing I did in terms of understanding what I was going to do, to understand what the budget would be for a build like this. So that being said, in the later videos, we'll talk about the budget and some of the other aspects of the truck. I'll break everything down as finite as I can so that people can actually see how and why. And then eventually, in the meantime, I'll probably put some more videos up of the truck running and driving, because the first video I posted really stunk. But yeah, so if there's any questions, feel free to send me an email or whatever, and I'll do my best to get back to everybody. Till the budget video, thanks, later.